Hello and welcome to American Amnesia. I am your host, Cliff Garner. And, at any rate, I got rid of the mutton chops there. Didn't mind the look of it so much, although, people haven't worn that in a long time. But I had some students who were curious about it, and so I thought, I haven't done that in a long time. Let's see what it looks like. So it's not so bad, but I am planning on getting a pretty serious haircut here. I'm talking about chopping it all and sending the ponytail to Locks of Love here real soon. So going with a shorter look, I thought I'd go with something a little less hairy, hirsute, I suppose, to go with what I'll do for my hairstyle for a few months anyway. I'll let it grow out. It grows pretty fast. What you see here, I cut it very short. I mean, what you used to call a regular haircut, right? Mostly thicker on top, right? But it was off my ears, off my neck. And, I cut it really short. It was a buzz cut. And that was September of 2014, not too long after I got back in from Turkey. So what you see is the growth since then, about 3 years growth. A little bit short of that, I suppose. And within a year, it was back to my shoulders. So it grows pretty fast. I'll contemplate what to do once it gets about shoulder length. I've been growing it and wearing it in a ponytail for the most part, and that's not a bad way to go. I kind of like that look. So, at any rate, that's my plans. I'm going to cut it short here pretty soon, and then for once it'll actually be a true summer cut, and by the time fall rolls around, it'll be starting to fill back in. There you have it. And I don't generally like my hair too terribly short, but I'm gonna cut it just just so I can give the ponytail and then kind of even it up, make it look good. I do want to look good. So at any rate, there's been a few things that have been on my mind. I returning to using the cheaper camera that's inside of my laptop at least for the time being, because the production time to prepare with my better camera because of the pixels takes way too long. And in fact, it would take over a day to upload, and I love the quality. The quality was excellent, but it's just not feasible that way. This is a much better way as far as format goes, because it's I can have it up within a matter of hours, and I can kick these out whenever I'm ready to put another one down. I've been busy, of course. I find ways of being busy one way or another, but I've been doing my research and stuff. I have also been trying to find a work for the coming school semester and figure out what I'm going to be doing beginning of the fall semester that comes in late August and early September, and so I'm hoping to nail some stuff down, and if I can't, then I might have to go down to Texas and look around for work, or wherever. Illinois just has not been good, and but there's a couple things I'd like to look into. I really wanted to move home to be home. I like staying with my mom and seeing her in the morning when I get up and saying hi and talking to her about what's planned for the day, things like that. It just it's pleasant. I like being home when I'm home. Where were I married, I'm sure that whoever I'd be married with would have to listen to me in the morning and wake me up and prod me a little bit to get going, and wouldn't listen to me and hear my plans and ideas and thoughts on the day. You know, watch a little news and eat breakfast and go. You know, the life and the routine is a good thing. I enjoy routine living, no matter where I'm at. Where I'm at, that's secondary. The fact that there's a routine that I find at some levels just really rewarding. You know, that it's a lifestyle that I feel. You know, and I share to some degree with others when I do. That's a good thing. I also like living on my own. I've lived in Chicago. I've lived in China. I've lived in Turkey, and I've found joy in living every day in all of them, and even here in Springfield. Even though I think the only time I ever really didn't care for the routine was when I was just really holding on in the bar business, and just really felt like I was on a vicious merry-go-round that would never stop, with the addiction and the anger and just the various emotions. Living through alcoholism, I'll have to talk about that sometime. Is not a pleasant thing, and I do understand how it is, and it's something to break. You want to break out of that prison, and that's the thing. The routine is no longer joyful. It's almost painful to endure after a point, and it's like a merry-go-round. It just goes around and around and just no end. It's like hell. So, at any rate, but that's my hope, is to find something close to home, and I there's a couple good possibilities, including where I've worked before. I have enjoyed working at the universities and community colleges and stuff around here. I do like that, and if I can pull together enough hours, that'd be fantastic. And if I can go back to school and maybe and we'll go into theology or something, that would be fantastic too. We'll see, and I'll keep you posted. A few things. The research I've been doing is coming along. I'm still looking really strongly into the Great Sellout. That's when the radicals of the 60s betrayed us younger radicals coming in their place and telling us to get out of the way. Don't protest them. We'll be preventing them from taking over the world, right? And I think that they weren't very nice about it either. But they pulled up the barricades and told us that if we had protested them, that they would shoot. And they did. They arrested a lot of people I knew, and they wanted to shut it down really fast. And the next thing you know, a lot of people, instead of joining the Democrats and going along with them on Carter, people were like, this guy isn't so hot anyway. Let's go to the other side. So a lot of people ended up going more of the libertarian type, a little more conservative ideas on the whole, but at the same time freedom loving. Right? went to the right and ended up joining on with the Reagan Revolution, and actually probably accomplished a whole lot more. And that's really what happened. That the two sides, the two parties, took parts of the old radical movement of the '60s and some of the offshoots of what was coming through the '70s, and really that's why nothing happened in the '70s. They made sure that nothing happened, and they wanted to take the world now. We want the world and we want it now, right? Then that's what they tried to do. It didn't quite work. And there are some vestigial things about all that with the generational politics. And I've got plenty of books on the subject. I've been looking into it. I'm currently reading, what is it, Generation of Sociopaths. Good book for the most part. I have some problems with it, but it does describe the divide and how it, really kind of how it came about. And it does do some of that. There's some other things that I'm also waiting to hear back from some people on, and hopefully I'll be hearing those soon. Also, research on the AKP, and the connection to the Muslim Brotherhood. Having a little more trouble finding information on that. Most of the good stuff is in Turkey, and that is an issue. There's problems there because of that, but also there are some things I'm trying to kind of shake some of that out with. When I was living there, a lot of the political magazines, things like the national security magazines that you pick up, or the international politics stuff that what do they call it? Because they look like little books, and you go to Barnes and Noble and you'll see those there. Those kind of books / magazine periodicals, or whatever you want to call them, they come out, maybe about 4 times a year. Those were the kinds of things that would have the most information on the cross-pollination between the Muslim Brotherhood and the AKP that occurred mostly actually later on, not at the beginning in the 20s and 30s, because of the just overwhelming influence of Ataturk, but more likely started creeping in like in the 50s, and you start seeing more of it in the 60s, and this Islamism was starting to pop up actually in some of the political parties in Turkey, and very quickly it became popular even, mostly in more conservative movements and the right wing kind of things. Hang on a second. But also with nationalism and stuff, that kind of thing was more likely to come up in there than the left-wing parties, and it still is. You see Saadet party in Turkey is really a little more extreme than the AKP, and they really get into some really freaky conspiracy theories about the Jews taking over the world stuff. But it all goes down to these influences that, like I say, start coming in more in the 50s, and then in the 60s, and then really start rolling in late 70s, and by the time the 80s come along, it's like an irresistible movement. although they did resist, the Turks had laws against violating the secularism of the state. Okay, and they served the state well for the most part, but there was some serious problems because the people who were trying to frustrate the religious movements, political religious movements. I should make that qualification. It's a serious difference. But those political religious movements, or they're actually religiousized political movements, those in Turkey were coming up against what was called the White Turks, and these are people. Our equivalent to the White Turks would be the limousine liberals, and that's pretty much who they are. You know, they're wealthy, super liberal in certain respects, folks that really don't mind actually undermining democratic and even Republican values to uphold their privilege, and there's quite a few of them, and Erdogan has dealt with them in a way that has marginalized their influence, and if they don't like what he's doing, then he just really doesn't care anymore. He was trying to at one time to court them because they have a lot of money. They still do. A lot of your large corporations in Turkey and some of the monopolies are staffed with these people, and this was a part of the deep state that he is probably not won over, but he's not too worried about it because he can go around them now. He has won over the parts that he's found important, and that's that's we'll look at some of that kind of thing. So there's that issue, and another issue that I'm actually coming a little more along with, and I do think that it'd probably be a good idea to write on a little bit, is the confluences, particularly focusing on Gülen and how there was the dynamic between Gülen and Erdogan that came together with the AKP and formed the party, and to show the different influences that were also on there or in the movement itself, but to show how that those two ended up becoming warring factions, I think is a particularly interesting story itself. So, and that is developing, and I am getting more and more information on that, and I'm learning a lot about Gülen, really. That I knew some of this kind of vaguely, but now I'm kind of putting it in more of a perspective, and it's very interesting. A couple of the books I'm looking at. This is one I checked out from the library. I've got several on the Kurds as well, but this one, let's see, can you see it? The Turks Today. The Turks Today, and this is by Andrew Mango. I'm not too familiar with him. I've heard his name. And this is, as far as it goes, it's a relatively new book. It's 2004. And it'll probably be useful for putting that period of time in which the AKP grew and formed into the party that it did and came to power in 2002. it'll be useful for that kind of information. But I don't think that it really will be too much good for actually what's going on there right now. And as far as it goes, right now, there are very few books in English that are available, readily available, about Turkey and explaining what is happening there today. That is a really a big lack, and that shouldn't be. And maybe I should write the book. I don't know. We'll see. I am putting together a lot of information that I do find interesting, and who knows? You know, I have written book-length papers before. Another book that I'm reading right now, I got this about, I don't know, a couple weeks ago. This is brand new, and it's called The Ottoman and Ghin. It's War, Revolution, and the Making of the Modern Middle East, 1908 to 1923. It's by a guy named Sean McMeekin. And this is brand new. I think it just came out. Hang on a second. Yeah, 2017. So this is brand new. And to my knowledge, this is the first book that covers the period of time of the years just before the war, World War I, and the years after it that were so important for the formation of the new Middle East. The last book that I am aware of that covers this period of time in a very this nice combination of popular and also very academic, where the two meet and come together. This is the first book of its kind, to my knowledge, since The Peace to End All Peace, which came out in the, I think, early 90s, might have been late 80s. And that was an excellent book. And it covered a lot of the, in fact, it was the first one to put a lot of that information together for the first time in English, and talk about, the significance of Ataturk and things like that. I mean, there are books about Ataturk. There's some good biographies. There's an excellent one in English that came out, early 2000s, I think. And I had it when I lived in Turkey. I may have left it there, but it was very good. And I read probably 2/3 of it. Just kind of jumped around different parts of it that caught my eye really. And so anyway, that's a really good book. I don't know that I'm going to use it in either of these two research projects here, but I do plan to use it on some other things. This, holy cow! That is Arabic writing, and this book is called The Middle East: A History by Sidney Nettleton Fisher, and this is an old book. It was written in 1959. I was a year old, and really it covers that period of the fall of the Ottomans and stuff. It covers that pretty well. It's not a very comprehensive history from ancient times to modern, but it does cover the modern era really well, and it's got some great maps. So as far as it goes for the Byzantines and stuff like that, this is so. The rise of the Muslims. I have Tom Holland's In the Shadow of the Sword, and I have a couple of the other newer writers that I find really interesting. And then I'll probably dig those up again soon after I get done with these other two projects there. So, at any rate, that's there. Another one I picked up recently. Actually, I've had this for a few months, so you've probably seen the ads for it on YouTube, and they're just hilarious. The one with the guy just throwing fits, you know, but it's not what he's talking about, you know. They were playing around. But the People versus Muhammad psychological analysis, and I've thumbed through this a little here and there, and then I'm starting at the beginning, and I still kind of pick at it here and there too. So, you know, I mean, it's possible I'll never completely finish it. But it does do a very good job of analyzing the hadith and the other secondary literature of Islam to give us a pretty good picture of who Muhammad was. And it's not a very flattering picture. I've gotten into arguments with people on Facebook on this a little bit. And they say, oh, well, you know, the people say this all the time, blah, blah, blah. Well, you know, the thing is that the hadith, doesn't give a very flattering picture. They have to attack in order to keep people from actually reading what it says. And what it says is it's true. I mean, he married a 6-year-old. He practiced spying with her, where he tried to prepare her for sex, and finally consummated his marriage with her when she was 9 years old. And Aisha was his favorite wife. You know, I mean, she was a young one, and you can imagine when he died, you know, she was still a fairly young lady, and he made sure that she couldn't remarry. Yeah, nice of him. Huh? But that's the thing, you know, you get into who he was, you know, he was a conquering slaver, and that's what he was. And he built a religion to promote what he was trying to do politically. So there you have it. This one I bought just the other day. Spiritual Writings of Kierkegaard. I read Kierkegaard when I was younger, and so I'm kind of getting back to basics here. And I've always found him interesting and inspiring, even. So I'm going back and looking at some of those works again. Another thing I'm looking at. Finally decided to pick it up. Arabic for Dummies. I'll study Arabic in tandem with my Hebrew studies, and it might actually help me to accrue some better vocabulary. This one I bought just a few days ago. It's a little worn. Conspiracy of the Ruling Class, and this is particularly interesting. How to Break Their Grip Forever by Lawrence B. Lindsay. Lindsay, what he has written here is very comparable to Christopher Lash's work. And I when I picked it up and started looking at it, it's like, whoa, we need somebody to kind of update what Lash did. And that's part of what I'm trying to do with what I'm doing here, is to not only update it, but also to show the practical applications of it, and to help facilitate meaningful change in the future. That's really what I'm out for. And that this book is very good, and he really kind of picks up where Lash leaves off, and he is addressing the same people in the deep state. This also ties in with the Diane Ziegler textbook, and identifying who these people are. And what is their purpose? Well, what the purpose was that they were self-appointed protectors of our democratic republic, and that and Lash points out that somewhere in the 90s, somewhere while he was still alive, they had begun to sell out and to overthrow their self-proclaimed responsibilities and to actually start to work really for themselves only, and to that they betrayed their so-called function. And not only that, they betrayed us, the people, because they tried to convince us that they were necessary. And they're not. They're not. They're not part of the Constitution. As a matter of fact, what we need to do, there's a lot of things we need to do, but for one thing, what we need to do is we need to change constitutionally the rules on judges so that they do not hold, particularly the Supreme Court, that they do not hold that seat for life. They can't do that any longer because that has become abused to such a significant end. I mean, we see why they want to keep them there, and they used really the least accountable part of the government to pursue an end, actually to take over the world is what they're trying to do, and they have done actually a rather admirable job of that, and it's time to dismantle it. And I think the world might thank us too. Although I'll come to this again and again. Although what we have right now, there have been people who call it empire. It is. We have a world empire, international world empire, with America as the capital. That is what we have. We are fighting against how they have subverted the republic and the rights that came with the republic. This is for this reason that they also, when they started talking about nation building, that they betrayed the nation building that they said they were doing for something that was much, much worse. And I'll try not to go too deep into this right now because there's things I need to prep. But when I was overseas, and especially when I was in Turkey, I started meeting people from the Middle East, and I changed my mind quite a bit on the whole thing, because I was originally for it, and I was for the war, even if there was no weapons of mass destruction. That wasn't the point, as far as I was concerned. The point was if we were going to build a nation, that these people should have benefited, and they could have. But instead of having that happen, they made sure that the state failed, for one. They made sure of it. What you see there is what they intended. That was the intention. They're trying to make up for mistakes that they made at the end of World War I, and they're trying to reformulate the whole state concept, really. They're trying to get rid of the idea of having a state that has its own integrity, and they're trying to recreate super state structures that really are not states per se with territorial integrity. They're trying to undermine And the reason is because they want to move human human bodies, which are for sale, goods and money with impunity. And that, in order to do that, you have to have a situation in which there is no state that you are going through per se. That if they have territorial integrity, they're able to stop you and to stop you from doing what you're doing and charge you money for it or to prevent you altogether. And there might even be legal repercussions. So that's what they're trying to do. And I had talked, and I've been talking to people for years on what this is, this super conglomeration type state, the corporate state, the international corporate state that exceeds boundaries. This is like the deconstructionism all to itself, to where everything that meant something has no meaning, and that what we're trying to pursue breaks down meaning-wise and moves away from us. The more we define it, the less we know about it. So that's what they're trying to do with all this. And I've talked to a lot of people that agree. Some people are for it, some people are against it. I'm against it. I don't like it anymore. I did at one time. At one time I could see, okay, this could work. And they betrayed every good principle. Every good principle. Every moral possibility they threw into the garbage can so that they could make a profit on everybody. I can't support that. And I saw that when I was overseas. I saw that was the result of what they were doing and that they were continuing to do. And they were doing it deliberately. It has to stop. And there are people within the elites, not just localized American elites, but international, that are willing to oppose that. And so that's the thing. Are we going to have an elite? Yeah, there's always going to be an elite. Get over it. We have to make them accountable again. That's the point. Speaking of accountability, I also bought this just a couple days ago, actually. The Double Life of Fidel Castro. My 17 years as personal bodyguard to El Líder Máximo. And I think I pronounced that right. Juan Reynaldo Sanchez is the writer. He was one of Castro's bodyguards. He wrote this in 2008, actually. It's just now coming out in English. And I remember reading about Sanchez through, what was her name? I think her name was Sanchez too, but not related. Yoani Sanchez, I think, is her name. But she's a Cuban blogger that got a lot of recognition. Even she wrote a couple of things to Mr. Obama, and he actually answered her, which was one of the few good things that he did. But I don't think that he continued to put value on the dissident movement at all. I think he sold them upriver, and real shame. But Sanchez, Juan Reynaldo Sanchez was one of the pampered people of the Cuban government. He saw things that he probably should not have seen, and definitely not to comment on. Talking about Castro and his enormous wealth, Castro was one of the richest men who ever lived. I mean, fabulous wealth, and as he's passed away, that has gone on to actually to his widow. He had a whole family, people, 5 kids, I think, maybe more. In fact, I'm sure it was more, but I think he had 5 with this one woman, and that was his actual wife. And he carried on affairs. There's rumors that Justin Trudeau was his bastard son through Trudeau's mother. His mother was a pretty well-known floozy, actually. She was a groupie, big time, for the Rolling Stones, for one thing. But she was well known to give it up. Beautiful woman. But yeah, there's she cucked good old what's his name, Jerry Trudeau. I can't remember. Gary Trudeau. No, he's a cartoonist. Whatever. The guy that ran Canada at one time. No surprises there. And yeah, it could be Castro's bastard kid. Who knows? So at any rate, those are some of the books I'm reading right now. I have a number of others that I picked up. Art books, books on 1776. Some of them I'll read, some of them I'll thumb through. Some of them I'll keep them around just as something I might delve into as a part of my research of different kinds. But I have a huge library. I got another one. Where is that? A couple that here's one that is interesting. I'll just mention it real quick because I have been doing quite a bit of research in this area. Compass. This is by Alan Gurney, and it's talking about some of the technology and even developments in technology and stuff for purposes of exploration that occurred towards the end of the medieval era, and really had a lot to do with the boom of the Renaissance and in our knowledge of the world itself and all that. I mean, it's just incredible, and I have done some research on this kind of thing, especially because for one thing, I study medieval history in a very intense way, and ancient in a fairly intense way too. And in our programs on like Flint Radio, Garth has talked to a fellow who is a professor in Oxford. I think it's Oxford, it might be Cambridge. That has produced some really good work on science and technology in the medieval era. There's so much about that, and we like to sit in our arrogance and look at the past and say how stupid they were, and marvel at how smart we are. Well, there's really not a whole lot of bragging right we have. We're not that bright, and not only that, we're not that much better if we are better at all. Indeed. Matter of fact, morally, we're probably far behind them, and that I do believe is true. That I think that we have betrayed a lot of our humanity and really gotten very little in return for it. Okay, so at any rate, one of the things I did want to get to um, before I close, I had a little discussion on Facebook regarding Comey and the FBI and Flynn and all that. And I had posted an article from January 2017, earlier this year, from the New York Post, and it's by a fellow named Joe Tacopino, something like that. And I'll put this in there as a for a reference, and I'll put a couple other things in as well. But the New York Post article reads the headline: FBI clears Micheal Flynn and probe linking him to Russia. And this was back in January 24th of this year. So this is right at the opening days, really, of Trump's administration. And it says here, the FBI has reviewed intercepted phone calls between National Security Advisor Micheal Flynn and the Russian ambassador to the U.S. and has found no evidence of wrongdoing, it was revealed Monday. The calls were made in late December and picked up as part of routine electronic surveillance of Russian officials. They did not reveal any illicit ties between Flynn and Russia, according to the Washington Post, and the Washington Post article confirms this. The review of the calls was part of a wider probe into Russia's interference in the presidential election and hacking of the Democratic National Committee. Yeah, people forget that part, don't they? The hacking of the Democratic National Committee. And now we know that it was actually not so much a hacking. It was probably more of an inside job. Although there was that spearfishing expedition that somebody went on, and apparently Podesta fell for and gave him his information to get into his account. And I mean, a lot of people talk about how his password was password or Obama or some crap, but that's kind of secondary. What it is. Spearfishing is not a high tech thing. I got all over a couple people for making it sound like it is. And they're just, oh my God, they've been spearfishing us. Oh. Holy cow! Shut up. Spearfishing is very simple. It's there's a link in an email, and they're trying to get you to go to the link and supply the information for getting into your the website or your bank account or whatever. And it happened to me once. I mean, I actually was stupid enough to do that, and I reported them right away. And I changed my password and all this, and the world was all good. I also turned a few people in, and one of them I know for sure was actually arrested, and they broke up a bunch of them. There were a group of them working together in California, and they were using airlines. And my friend, he was going to order tickets from the airline that they were talking about. I think it was United, I think. And he was going to order tickets, but he hadn't done it yet. And he was wondering why he was getting this in the mail. And it's like, you haven't ordered tickets? So why don't you forward that to the company, see what they tell you. And they said that it wasn't theirs, and they put the FBI on it, and they busted these guys. So I mean, it's not like it's it's really kind of stupid to fall for it. But at the same time, I mean, I was stupid enough to fall for it. Just not thinking. It's like, okay, I have this tie with this company, so I went ahead and did it. Then I realized, hey, wait a minute. They're asking me for all this. So I contacted them and turned it all in, and they helped me to shut off anybody else from getting in, and we changed all my information so that they couldn't get in. I don't know what happened to the people that did it, but in one case, I know that they did arrest them. A lot of them come out of Nigeria, and that's a fact. And the reason is because they don't have an extradition treaty with us, and they also their laws regarding internet and phones and everything else is it makes it so that it's hard for the authorities over there to pursue them, and that's the reason why you have all these Nigerian scams. So when you hear people talking about the spearfishing thing, just keep that in mind. It's not the high-tech issue that people make it out to be. The only part that involves any tech at all is the fact that they use the HTML codes in the messages themselves, so that they are actually doing a forgery of the what do you call it? Email formatting of for the companies. I mean, they are doing that. I mean, it's not like everybody can do that, but if you're just basically able to do a certain amount of web design, then you can get away with it rather easily. And then you set up online a page for them, that link to go to, and to snare the information. That's it. And so, is that high tech? No, not really. It doesn't take a particularly good hacker to do that. That's pretty low key, pretty low level stuff. So at any rate, and Podesta got suckered, and he didn't want to admit it, and whoever got in there took them for quite a bit. But we do also see that chances are that it was an inside job. That's the whole Seth Rich thing, and that adds up. Whoever killed Seth Rich now that's an issue. And as far as it goes, I mean, you look at motive and means and ability to fulfill that, right? The DNC doesn't look too good here, especially with the way Devar Wasserman Schultz has gone around threatening people. Think about it. Yeah, it should come back on them, because the way they've behaved is shameful. And that's what we see with the WikiLeaks documents. Their behavior has been shameful. They should be held accountable for it. It is illegal. A lot of it is very illegal. Violations of the Constitution, violations of people's civil rights, violations of public trust. Big time. I will never, if they don't reform, I will never vote Democrat again. Ever. And I mean that. They need to reform. They need to start sending some people to the joint, because that's where they belong. And I think Debbie Wasserman Schultz is right there first. And not only that, what about those people that have been dying all around there? And we need to ask those questions. That lawyer that for the government that popped up on the beach just happened to be investigating her and got thumped on the head, thrown out the city. Did she do it? Probably not. Did someone do it for her? That's another question. And that would require an investigation. But that would be the first place I would investigate. Think about it. Think about it long and hard. What does this mean? So, Flynn was cleared in January 24th, 2017. He resigned a few days later. And I'm going to go to another article here. And this is from New York Times. Comey memo says Trump asked him to end Flynn investigation. And the timing of this. See, the FBI finished its investigation the 24th of January. And it did. It was over. They didn't investigate Flynn again. They didn't have to. The other investigation kicked in. That was a congressional investigation. And you go back and you look at it. The FBI didn't pick its investigation back up. It didn't need to. It had already done all it could. And they admitted that he didn't do anything. And then he's fired. Or actually, he's told to resign. Why? Because he wasn't honest with the Vice President Pence. He didn't tell Pence about something. Also, the allegations were starting to come out about him taking money from Turkey. Big time. Not Russia, but Turkey. And they were investigating, and they're probably still looking at it in the Congress, about the angle of him in Turkey is juxtaposed to Russia. Turkey and Russia don't get along. Hello? Get real. Turkey and Russia don't get along. They don't. Period. They make deals. Big deals. Lots of money. But they don't get along. There's a big dispute over Syria. And that has to do with pipelines. That has to do with Turkey making money. Turkey's trying to buy gasoline from Russia. Why? Because they actually produce the finished product of the gasoline and sell it. Oh. Yeah. Turkey's a middleman. That's why gasoline prices in Turkey are the highest in the world. Now, they found out about that. They found about, that he was making deals over Turkey. But they still haven't found any connection to Russia. That's a congressional investigation. So, they're going to squeeze it for all it's worth. And there's nothing coming out of it. Why? Because there's nothing there. He's not working with Russia. He was working with Turkey. There's a big difference. I'm still more worried about him dealing with Turkey. But at the same time, they're not telling us doodly squat about that. You know why? It has nothing to do with Russia, and Turkey is supposed to be our ally in NATO. Hello? So when Trump talked to Comey, it says Comey wrote the memo detailing his conversation with the president. This is from that article in New York Times. I'm not going to read all of this. Detailing his conversation with the president immediately after the meeting, which took place the day after Mr. Flynn resigned. What day did Mr. Flynn resign? Well, let's see. I wrote it down here. He's cleared on January 24th by the FBI. He resigns February 14th. Well, actually, the meeting occurs on the 14th. Flynn resigned the 13th. So almost a month later, he resigns. After he's been cleared by the FBI. We were all wondering about that. What's going on with this? And why is it going into investigation in the Congress? Well, it was because of the whining from the Democrats, who are afraid of what might happen if they actually started looking and how the so-called hacking of the DNC occurred. They didn't want that investigated. They still haven't turned over their servers. There's a petition going around, and H.A. Goodman has been pushing that petition for quite a while now. So the day after he resigned, the conversation with the president took place immediately after the meeting, which took place the day after Flynn resigned, according to two people who read the memo. It was part of a paper trail Mr. Comey created documenting what he perceived as the president's improper efforts to influence the continuing investigation. The FBI agent's contemporaneous notes are summed up in court as credible as evidence of conversations, that they had a conversation dealing with Flynn after he resigned. Okay. That's what it says. Now, we keep going. Comey shared the existence of the memo with senior FBI officials and close associates. The New York Times has not viewed a copy of the memo, which is unclassified, and it still hasn't been produced. But one of Mr. Comey's associates read parts of it to the Times reporter. I hope you can see your way clear to letting this go, to letting Flynn go. Now, why would Trump say that if he'd already been cleared by the FBI? One of the reasons that Comey was fired was because he lied. This is one of those lies. We have proof. There is no reason that he would mention that. No wonder he's so pissed off, and that he was talking about producing tapes. Only Comey forgot that he had actually let Flynn go. It had already happened. Yeah, I agree he's a good guy. Whatever. That's what this is about. The whole narrative is falling apart. There is no narrative anyway. They patched it together at the spur of the moment to try to cover for Hillary Clinton. And to try to cover for Debbie Wasserman Schultz and her misdeeds before she had to resign. Covering for Podesta and some really nasty stuff that he was pulling. They're also trying to cover for the press, who was in collusion with the Clinton campaign in the primaries and then in the election, and they cheated. CNN gave Donna Brazile those questions. She gave them to Hillary Clinton. That's where she started freaking out and started saying, "I'm a Christian woman." Okay, I'm a Christian man, and I've got serious questions about what you did. And it doesn't mean that just because you're a Christian means that you're unaccountable. Just because you get all huffy doesn't mean you're right. So, this is the kind of thing that is destroying the credibility of the press, because they're not keeping track. They're throwing things at you. You know, it's like throwing stuff and seeing what sticks. It's all political. They have been so politicized, and they're corporately owned. And everybody wants to say, "Oh, they're corporate." Well, yeah. Hello. Yes, they are corporate. And you trust them? You tell me not to trust Trump because he's a big money corporate dude. So I'm supposed to trust, what's his name, Slim, that owns the New York Times? One of the richest men in the world, big corporate dude? That owns the big corporate New York Times? No. Wake up, bots. Wake up, snowflakes. time to move out. Time to actually get a grip on reality. The rest of us see it. Talk to you later.